Welcome to episode 79 with a much smaller but still dedicated group of posse coming at you tonight. We have, due to illness and other things beyond our control, we just have three of us. So East Coast, TJ Haller. How you doing, TJ?
Pretty good. Getting excited because I have a trip coming up in less than a week to the Netherlands for SMC.
Awesome. And I think you're headed to PAXCon tomorrow, right?
I do, yeah. So by the time anyone hears this, PAXCon will have passed. And so I got to get up relatively early and drive about 2 hours down to Southern Maryland, to Hollywood, Maryland, where I will be all day at PAXCon. So it'll be pretty cool. Jackson and Grizz are coming down, and Stephen Lee, Mr. Sprue Pie with Frets, is coming down from Delaware. So I will meet him and give him back his Lunagans that I have, that I finally got back. And yeah, hopefully it should be a good time.
Nice. That sounds like a lot of fun. I wish we could be there with you. Out on the other coast, the left one, Grant, how have you been? How are things going?
Everything's going good. Went to a show last week, Orange Con last Sunday, which was fun. You know, it's been a busy week. The fall has left us here in Southern California, and now we're back in summer with 100-degree temperature. So it's nuts. Everything else is good though.
That's good. I've been trying to go see a movie, but I really want to go see that Creator flick. Have either one of you guys seen it?
Not yet. I mean, that looks like really cool. It's for the guy from the directed Rogue One, I believe, too, isn't it?
Yeah, one of the co-directors,
yeah.
I believe.
That's going to be interesting. It's going to be really interesting. I've been watching too much Ahsoka, so, I'm trying to keep up on that.
Yeah, it's pretty good stuff. All right. Well, what's everybody been working on? Grant, let's start with you. What's been on your bench?
Well, I finished up my buddy build A-Wing with Rick Lawler, a couple other people, Doug, and Josh. Yeah, it's Josh up in Seattle. So that one's done, based up and everything. That's good. Finished up another figure, getting ready for the end of this month. I will be with Scott, and we're going to MMSI in Chicago, which will be really interesting. So I'm really kind of looking forward to that and trying to get stuff ready. And I really, the guys, Ferry and Jim, have helped me a lot with ideas and stuff like that. So that's been working on that kind of stuff.
Nice. Are you fully moved back into your den now? Everything back to the point where it was?
It is. As you can see behind me, I got rid of the 1970s wood wall covering. So we don't have the shaggy carpet or the wood walls so anymore. So we got it painted. Everything's back to normal. I hate doing that because then you see how much you really have, and then you got to go, oh my God, I got to cut some of this stuff out. So, but sold a bunch of kits and cleaned up a lot, so everything's good.
That's awesome. TJ, what you been up to, man?
Well, last weekend I finished my Ancient Shelf Queen of the Fine Molds Y-Wing. Pretty happy with it. I mean, it's not bad for a 10-year-old build. I'd like to think that I've progressed a little bit in my actual building, although I probably haven't, because I've long maintained I'm not the best builder. I'm not bad, but I don't have the finesse that a lot of guys I really look up to have. Which, I mean, it is what it is. Yeah, there's some build issues that I probably could have fixed if I really wanted to, but I honestly don't care. It's gonna go to the show tomorrow at PAXCon, and then it'll probably never go to another show. I've kind of made the decision to not really enter any more contests, probably very much in the foreseeable future. Just I'm kind of over the whole thing. But I gotta support PAXCon, so I will be bringing that. And like I said, like I saw some ejector pen marks, and I'm like, oh yeah, I probably should have taken care of that. And I noticed it after I primed and painted the base coat. I just was like, whatever, who cares? They're ejector pen marks. They are what they are. There's some seam lines on some, the thing's covered in tubes or pipes or whatever. There's some seam lines on some of those. I was like, yeah, don't care. Again, found them after I primed and painted the base coat, and I mixed the base color, and I don't plan anything. I don't write anything down. Didn't remember what I used. So even that was like the following day. I'm like, whatever. So I just left it, and yeah, don't care. It looks good. I like it. I love modeling Star Wars. It's been a long time. I did a TIE Fighter 2 years ago, the one that I think lives at your house, Scott, the big 48 scale one.
Yeah.
But besides that, the last Rebel thing I painted, I honestly don't remember what it was. I think it was an X-Wing of some variety. And it was years ago. And I'm sure you guys know, and my friends know, I'm a Rebellion guy. That's my That's my jam when it comes to Star Wars. And the Y-wing specifically is my favorite airplane, favorite spacecraft in the Rebellion fleet. Sidebar, it's their best fighter. I don't care what anyone says. There's a reason why it was chosen to shoot some photon torpedoes down the shaft of the Death Star, because it was the best thing they had. Yeah, I don't know. Everyone always likes to think like the X-Wing is like the slick, good fighter. I'm like, yeah, they were just there for top cover. That was their only role. The Y-Wing had the important job because they trusted the Y-Wing to do it. Sidebar, finished. Yeah, so I really like it. I did, it's a scheme taken from the X-Wing Miniatures tabletop game. They use it for a Crymora Syndicate Y-Wing, and it's like if you're steeped in Star Wars lore, the Crymora Syndicate was one of the crime syndicates in the Outer Rim. If you know, the Outer Rim is where Tatooine was and the Hutt Cartel and all that stuff. So they're just like generic bad guys, I guess. And yeah, so I did some cool stuff. I painted a couple panels on the cockpit to look like they've been salvaged from like decommissioned Gold Squadron Y-wings, and it's got like a white, like an off-white and red scheme. It's really cool. I like it. It's one of my favorite schemes I've done, and I love that kit. It's so good. So I finished that. That's good. And I started building Meng's AMX 30 B2, the almost fully modernized AMX 30. It's the same one that the French fielded in the first Gulf War. It's a cool little kit. I got most of the hull built, and I decided to buy the Voyager model photo etch upgrade set because I don't want the jerry cans on the back or both fire extinguishers on the front. I wanted empty containers for some of or empty brackets for some of those, and they don't give you that option in the kit. So, I mean, I bought that kit for next to nothing from Stephen Lee. He sold it to me at a show last year, I think, maybe earlier this year. It's Meng. It's a good kit. I love the AMX 30. I think it's a cool little main battle tank. The kit markings are all Desert Storm, and I didn't want to do that. I'm going to do mine in NATO 3-tone. I got some aftermarket decals for it from Star Decals. And yeah, so I'm waiting for the Voyager photo etch to come from China, I believe. So since we talked to Justin Lentz on the last episode, I pulled back out my MiG-21R, and I've been poking around on that. I've almost got it ready to get sealed up. Last night when I was watching the embarrassing game that the Washington Commanders put on for Thursday Night Football down here, I painted the wheel wells interior green. There's like these, I think they're like oxygen tanks of some variety, that they're blue and black. They're cool. You can kind of see them tucked back in the wheel well. I painted those, got those glued in. I got a little bit of cleanup to do on the fuselage seam. I got the spine glued on. So I'm really close to sealing up the wing, like putting the belly and the wings on. I cut out for the air brakes, which was harrowing. I probably won't ever do that again on one of the other ones that I have. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I've been relatively busy, and unfortunately I have more work to do because I have to get prepped for SMC next week. I need to touch up some stuff that I'm bringing to fix one of the tanks the only tank that I'm bringing. It has a couple of damages just from being moved around. So yeah, hopefully I can get that done before I get on an airplane Thursday night for my whirlwind tour of the Netherlands. I think I've been rambling on long enough.
Man, I was just thinking what a huge tactical error it is to let you go before me on what you've been working on.
I can keep talking if you want.
that would probably be good. But yeah, note to self, next time let TJ go after me. So I've been continuing to work on the Viper, and for people that think that doesn't really mean anything, this is kind of my magnum opus. So I did spot Bondo filler on all the support issues and all the defects on the parts, and then I've been using a Krylon auto body spray paint primer that has filler in it to smooth out any build lines that are there. And I've been did a couple of coats of that, and I've got the whole fighter just about ready to go into my paint primer, which I'll use my black MRP fine surface primer so that I can paint up from the black. Also been printing the Sandcrawler, which will be my next 3D project, and having just a hell of a time on the tracks. The tracks are extremely accurate. And the ILM original model had like a set of M48 or M60 tracks, and then they had these broad plates overlaid over the top of them, and that's how it's modeled. But man, getting the supports to where they hold all those broad plates in place and getting a decent track print has been a real challenge. So I've got all the main sections of the body. I need to print the underframe, and then I need to get 4 sets of good tracks, and that's been kind of a pain. Also went and got a shadow box at the local Hobby Lobby for my facade, and I'll start painting that this week. Looking forward to that. And the shadow box I have is deep enough. I might take a Tamiya Kettenkrad that I have all primed and stick it in there with the facade at some point. Anyway, that's what I've been working on. As far as anything else, did you guys see that Mang is doing models from Dune? And they look like kind of a Bandai approach to it. Look like non-glue, kind of press fit, high quality Japanese kits. And anyway, those look pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I did see that. And that is they're small, which, okay. I mean, beggars can't be choosers, I guess. The fact that we're getting Denis, whatever, you all know who he is, that we get models based on his movies of Dune is in itself really surprising. And even though I believe it's Jackson that said that Dune has a bland visual language, to which I wanted to choke him out when he said that, because it couldn't be further from the truth. I'm very excited. I love the Thopters, and I honestly did not realize from watching the first movie that the Harkonnens and Atreides have different Thopters. It makes sense because their other ships look different, so I guess it would make sense they would have different Thopters. It was pretty cool. So yeah. I think it's House Atreides Thopter, Ornithopter, if you will. House Harkonnen, Ornithopter, and then the my brain is not working.
Harvester.
The Harvester.
Yeah.
It'd be really cool if they did a carryall. Because I love the design of the carryalls in the movie. Yeah, I'd be into that. That'd be sweet.
Yeah, it's surprising that Mang's doing that. It kind of threw me off a little bit there, but the Harvester looks really cool, and the carryall that'd be great. I'd like to see a couple different. Some of their spaceships would be kind of interesting too. But yeah, it surprised me. I saw it. I think I saw it today for the first time. Link posted a couple images of one of the copter. Whatever, I'm going to call it a copter. Yeah, it's really kind of cool. It's different way they're going. So hey, more power to them.
Yeah, I think like what TJ said, the fact that we're getting models from the new Dune is just really surprising, and I'm down for it. I'll be buying some for sure. So
I mean, since we're talking about Dune real quick, I need to go on this tangent. Mm-hmm. I love the design, the visual language of the new movie, and I love all the new movies of all the designs except for one. That would be the Highliner. I do not like. And the only reason why is because they turn it into a freaking portal, like a wormhole thing, and that bothers me because that's not what they are in the book. Mm-hmm. And I'm not slavishly like obsessed with like every detail from the book, but I feel like the Highliner, the fact that you have to get into the Highliner and then you go to your assigned bay, and your assigned bay might be next to your mortal enemy, but you can't do anything about it. It's just one of those little details of the Dune universe I really, really like.
Yeah.
And visually, they look fantastic in the movie. It was a really cool effect. It just bothers me because that's not what a Highliner does in the book.
Right. I agree.
That's it. I think the round tube design is really cool. Yep. But yeah, I'm like, why can you see Arrakis on the other side? That's not how they work. But that's just being a nerd. Anyone that's, if you haven't read the book, you don't really care. Or if you have read the book, you don't care, which I'm sure most people don't. But yeah. That's it. Yeah, we were talking about that at work today, and we were talking. That's why it's fresh on my mind how much I dislike that.
Yeah, I think the concept of the original drawings of the Highliner is fantastic. The section tube, like you say, where it's 26 miles long. I think they said in the book or in the things at the read-offs of it, and how it actually doesn't have engines because it folds time. In the new one, they just have that hole, and it just lost it for me. And that I agree with you, but it's just the highlighter, the original one with the tube basically cut in half with a center section where the ships fly in, and that's just cool as hell.
Yeah, I'm hoping they do some more. I'd love to see a figure of a Fremen and maybe one of the Sardaukar. That'd be really, really cool. And there's some other craft as well, which would be pretty cool. But hopefully Meng does well with them and they make the most of that license, because I think it's awesome. I think it's great. So hopefully modelers will feel the same way and purchase a few of them. So anyway. All right. Well, let's go into our first discussion topic. I was listening to Plastic Model Mojo's their 12-minute episode they do in between main episodes the other day, and Dave Knights was having a conversation with Mike, and he said, I'm going to quote him a little bit, but he said it's a real sea change going from armor to aircraft or aircraft to armor as far as airbrushing goes, because they are very different in many, many respects. Yes, it's airbrushing, but other than that, there are different techniques, different orders of paint. With most armor, you assemble everything and then paint it, whereas with aircraft, there's a lot of times you're just painting stuff separately and you assemble it partially, paint it partially, and then just assemble the rest. So I guess my question for the group is, does this really ring true with you guys, or do you approach each model with regards to airbrushing with the relatively the same process? I mean, I agree as far as assembly goes, you're building an aircraft, you've got your landing gear, you've got a lot of really delicate, things that you do. And I agree that those projects are different from like armor. But as far as airbrushing, I was kind of surprised on that take. I kind of approach it the same way. But TJ, let me get your take on this first. Like, if you're building a plane versus a tank versus, whatever, do you change your painting processes, or are they fairly similar?
I've never really thought about it. I'd like to think not, but maybe I do. I don't know. I mean, I've also only built, well, I guess technically two. I've only built 1/48 scale airplane, and the actual like physical active airbrushing didn't change. I didn't do anything different. I sprayed this way I always spray, thin the paint that way I always thin it. I definitely did things differently to achieve the finish that I wanted, because it's not a finish that I necessarily work towards in armor, right? I did the, I guess you can call it black basing. It's not, it wasn't really, because I mean, I guess it was, but I put a bunch of different colors under the medium blue. I guess it was medium blue, whatever, that the light, not the, yeah, that's medium blue. Not an aircraft guy. Just want to remind everyone that, I did a bunch of different tones under the medium blue. I did some like yellows, I did some greens, browns, different grays, even white, to really like bring some visual texture into that, because it's an airplane and it's just got a bunch of flat surfaces all over it. I mean, I know they're riveted and have panel lines, all that stuff, but they're essentially just big flat surfaces. There's no real angles and curves or really like you would deal with like a rounded tank hull or where armor plates meet, that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, I definitely painted it differently, but like that, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, like mechanically, it wasn't any different. It's the way, like I said, the way I always do it, but I definitely approached it differently. Even if it was all single color, which is the way I prefer to work. The biggest fan of camo. I mean, I say that, but then I like paint every like max suit I've ever done in camo, all freehand, because I hate masking. But yeah, no, I agree with Dave to a certain degree for sure. They are different. There's a lot of the same. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, you do have to approach things a little bit different. I think when you're painting an airplane, I don't think it's that different, but it's definitely, I feel like I take my time more if I paint an airplane. I mean, I'm already, surprisingly enough, I wouldn't necessarily say I'm planning. I am thinking ahead. Like, I already know the scheme I'm going to do for the MiG. I'm like thinking about how exactly I'm going to do it. And I don't necessarily do that if I paint a tank. I'm just like, oh, just paint it green, whatever, figure it out. So, yeah, you know what, Dave? I do agree with you, buddy. Even though you build 72nd scale and no one likes that. That's the worst scale ever. I'm just kidding.
Sidebar
or am I?
It's a little bit of a sidebar. Did you guys see Matt McDougall? He's working on a Wildcat. Since you were talking about yours, it reminded me, but he did a kind of a light and shade and did some chipping, and then he was using some of those Goons enamel weathering solutions and applying them kind of in a different way. Did you see that, TJ?
I did, yeah. Matt does good work, so I'm looking forward to seeing how it turns out. Plus, it's Operation Torch, which is cool. That would be the American invasion of Tunisia, North Africa. So our involvement in the North African campaign. So yeah, that's an interesting modeling subject. It's blue and it has a star on it, so it's really not that different. But the star does have the yellow ring around it, which is cool. I do like that. It looks nice.
Yeah,
and
really cool.
yeah, Matt's a damn good modeler, so I'm excited to see how it turns out. Just keep him away from my hetzers, that's all.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm just kidding, Matt. I don't care. I'm just busting your balls, man.
Grant, what about you? Is it different for you? I know you said you really haven't done many aircraft, so I don't know, maybe whatever you've done besides a tank. Would you paint it differently, different sequences, different types of painting, or is it all the same to you?
I don't know. I mean, sequencing, of course, it'd be different because, like I did just finished up the A-wing. In the sequencing, you had to get the cockpit in there. So it had to be painted and it had to be, covered up, and then you did painted the rest of the model. Of course, sequencing is a little different on, I think, pretty much anything. Cars, planes, sci-fi, ships, stuff like that. I think the sequencing, again, is different. The overall style, or like TJ said, the mechanics, I don't think so. To me, it's all the same, I guess. I know that sounds weird, but I mean, I use Tamiya paints and I put the paint in the thing and I thin it down and I do what I got to do. And now, is there a different, focus on things? Yeah, definitely. I think the focus changes per subject. And that's basically what I mean by focus, is what you're trying to bring out in that model. Armor or stuff like that. You'll focus on, that hard steel look, that olive drab, or that, the German yellow or whatever, or, 4BO or, something like that. Or that's what you focus. Aircraft, you have more to worry about. You have more camouflage patterns. You have things here and there that you've got to worry about. I see some of these guys, Steve Baker's a great example. They do a lot of colors underneath their main color to bring out. He did the Firefox not too long ago, and the colors he had underneath that gray color were phenomenal. I mean, there was blues and yellows and all kinds of stuff in there, squiggly. But that's, to me, that's pretty interesting, to try and get back on the subject a little bit. I don't think that I changed my style of painting too much, but I do change the order, I would say, more than anything. So, I mean, I'm kind of 50-50 on this. So I would say I don't change my style, but the process might change per model. So, especially with sci-fi, I mean, you're looking at something that's a little bit different. You have to kind of take yourself out of the main idea of what you're building. TJ just did that beautiful, his Y-wing, and you had all the tubes and everything. And then you look at the A-wing, which I did, it's basically a flat surface. And so, there's two different styles right there. So, I mean, that's what I think. I mean, I guess I'm 50-50 on it, but it's interesting to, it's an interesting question, because you have airplane guys that, I've never seen them use an airbrush so much, because they're painting everything separate. Everything's blocked off. And if you watch guys like Spencer Pollard, when he paints, he fantastic, but, he's painting individual pieces at a time sometimes. And he's not the only one. There's 1,000 airplane models out there that do the same thing. So, I don't know. My style doesn't change, but the pattern, I guess, would.
Well, an A-wing's almost an airplane, man. I think you're ready. I think you're ready.
Yeah, I'm scared still. I'm still a little scared, boy.
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, I don't know. A couple of years ago, I built a Gundam. I painted it the same way I painted tank. And, I think Dave is kind of referring to probably, for me anyway, more 1/72nd scale armor, this idea that you put the entire thing together and paint it as one piece. And, Doug talks about that a lot with 48 scale armor. But I think for 35th scale armor, I generally don't go to that full extent. I mean, I definitely put a lot of the stuff on, but I think, running gear and things like that are usually painted separately, so you have some sub-assembly work going on there. So yeah, again, I mean, I don't know. For me, I think with it, when it comes to the build, I definitely think there's some sequential deviation from one subject to the other. But I mean, just for me, I think I don't think it changes all that much as far as what I'm doing. So anyway, is a good kind of point by David, and I thought it was interesting. So listeners out there, how do you approach it? If you build different genres, do you change your approach, or do you kind of stick to the same processes overall when you're airbrushing your work? Write us in to plasticpossepodcast@gmail.com and let us know. Well, let's move over to TJ. TJ, have an update for us on the Operation Overlord group build and SIG?
Yes, I do. Group build's going strong. Lots of people are building. If you want to get involved, just search for Operation Overlord group build on Facebook and join the group, and I'll get you in. If you want to build something, you comment on the pinned post that has the spreadsheet, and you will get added eventually. I would like to remind everyone again that just because the spreadsheet has not been adjusted or your name been added immediately, that doesn't mean you're not invited, you're not involved, or you can't build. That is just for housekeeping for us, the organizers. That's pretty much it. For when we get the display ready for Madison next year, so we can get little cards printed out for all of the builds, so that way we know who to attribute to what model. So that is what that is for. Don't stress about it. It's not a big deal. We will get you on there. I'm busy, Frill's busy, and updating the spreadsheet is not always on the top of my priority list. I do apologize, and it will be taken care of. So don't worry about that. But yes, please join up, build something cool for Operation Overlord, bring it to Madison, Wisconsin, slap it out on the table with the rest of us.
Nice. That'll be awesome. Hopefully that'll be a really, really big display. I think so far there's a lot of participation, which is great. Grant, how about an update on our facade group build?
So the facade group build is going well. We don't have a page. If you want to post your stuff, make sure you add a hashtag of
#facade group build.
Thank you. That's hard. Yeah. It started out great. We're doing really good. We don't have a group, but if you can post on our webpage at hashtag facade group build, and we'll get it and we'll everybody look at it. So one of the big things about this is that you do not have to have the AK facade. I've seen a lot of people doing a lot of their own stuff, which is really cool. Seeing some of the really, really nice thought that's being put into these things, and some really good ideas that are coming across, and really nice grabbing from other parts from other models and putting them on there. So it's some really good stuff, and this goes to the end of this month. So you have to the end of this month to get it done. This is in coordination with Rick Lawler at Propaganda website. So please mention him, mention us, and put it on there in the hashtag facade group build and get them out there.
I really like what Rick did with his second facade. I liked his first one too. And then Eric Brubaker's been working on a really cool one, kind of more in the spirit of what Rick did with his second one. So some really interesting variations on those.
Right. Yeah. Rick used a lot of Warhammer items on his second one, which was really cool. And Eric is using all kinds of parts. So it's, just seeing the creativity of these guys, and they're not the only ones. There's a whole bunch out there. So it's really nice.
Also want to give a shout out to Irish Pat. Steve Munsell tagged us in that. He's working on one over in Ireland, and that's looking really good as well. One of his kind of own designs, and that's really, really cool. So keep up the good work, Pat, and love what you're doing. Awesome. Well, let's take a break for a minute and hear from our sponsor, Tank Craft. And on the other side, we'll come back and have Grant lead us talking about some builds on the Plastic Posse group page we like.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Plastic Posse podcast is sponsored by Tank Craft, makers of the highest quality cutting mats for your modeling bench. Tankcraft cutting mats are heavy duty, self-healing, come in 2 awesome sizes, and have World War II tank and aircraft blueprint style drawings on them. Spread out your next build on an olive green M4 Sherman or Dunkelgelb King Tiger mat, and they've got aircraft too. So check out all the designs and also their range of unique modeling tools over at tankcraft.com. That's TANKRAFT.com. Don't forget, Plastic Posse listeners can use the code POSSE15 to get 15% off your first order.
All right. So this is a section where we go through our Facebook page and look for builds that we like. I'm going to start off myself. I'm going to talk about Spencer Pollard's airbrushing skills, to say the least. He did an Italian aircraft a couple days ago, painted it up in Desert Scheme, and he did the really cool Italian with the small little circles. And he had a lot of questions about how did he do that and stuff like that. And so he did a demo video. Actually, he did 2 demo videos. The first one was on a napkin, and he wasn't getting what he wanted. So then he went on to a piece of plastic the next day and did it again. And I really do appreciate that kind of work where someone will, he's willing to show us how he did it, which that helps the hobby so much and bring it in. And just the idea of Spencer, he's a great guy. He took the time to make these videos. I'm sure it didn't take him too long, but it's great that he did this to show people how to paint these, and there's a lot of thank yous and a lot of congratulations, appreciate it, all that kind of stuff on there. But for some reason that stuck out with me because we need more of that. And I'm really glad to see that come out and people are doing that more. And that's what I wanted to point out on the page. How about you, Scott?
Well, I mean, first of all, I agree. Spencer's Maki is really, really nice. The smoke rings, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, I wonder if he used the kit supply decals, for the whole kind of surfaces of the wings and the fuselage. And then thought, no, I think those are actually airbrushed, and those videos confirmed it. So great job, Spencer. Yeah. It's a great looking scheme on a great looking airplane. And you've really, really taken that kit and really done a good job with it.
I actually thought he hand painted them at first. I wasn't sure he did it with an airbrush.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to do 2. First one is a model we've already kind of briefly touched on, but TJ's Y-Wing. I haven't made it any secret that one of my favorite Star Wars builds was TJ's Red 6. And some of the colors here, the color palette is very, very similar. But the weathering, especially on the front cockpit section, that TJ has done, and I'm just going to talk about him in the third person for a minute here, but I really like the way it turned out, and his weathering on individual panels with the dark browns, as well as the chipping and fading. I mean, I'm not going to get tired of looking at this model for a while. So great job, TJ. I really like it. You're muted, so the audience couldn't hear you say it's all right.
I didn't say anything, but thank you.
And then my second choice is also not going to be a big surprise for people that have heard this podcast before, but I want to talk about Slugger. Spud's 1/16 scale Andes Easy 8 Sherman. Now that it's all complete, he put the baseball implements on the back of the vehicle and then tied it in with the name Slugger on the side. I think it's really indicative of his approach on the modeling and his approach on modeling in general. But he's always so thoughtful about the elements that he puts into his builds, and that build right from the start, the layers of paint in his OD and the disruptive pattern that he built into that, and the weathering, and whether it's the tracks or the OD overall, and then the way that he approached the stowage. I'm a huge fan. I'm going to gush over it, but it's a great model, and I think Spud is really leading the wave on of a lot of these great modelers working on these 1/16 scale kits. And, I think he's a big part of why people are buying a lot of them. So anyway, TJ's Y-Wing and Spud's Easy 8.
That's right. Yeah, Spuds and TJ's are fantastic. They both are. So I love the name Slugger too. That was great tie-in. TJ, what about you?
For my choice is going to be Martin Holst's Falca for the Cerulean project that he's doing. It's a really cool scheme. I know I mentioned earlier, I like all freehand camo schemes on my machining Krieger, and he did one too. The color this year for that the Cerulean project is green. So he has a two-tone green. It's like really super, super pale. It looks like duck egg green, pretty close. And then like a dark green is very, very cool. Yeah, he's not done yet. It's still a work in progress. So also kind of cheating because I usually try to highlight something that's done. But he like just posted this like 45 minutes ago, right before we started recording. I'm like, damn, that's pretty sweet. So yeah, had to give him a shout out. Yeah, good job, Martin. I believe he's going to be at SMC. I hope.
Yep, I think so.
Yeah, I could have swore he said he was going to be there, so that's cool. So hopefully that makes it there. I'd like to see it in person. Of course, getting to meet him will be more than enough. So yeah, very cool.
Man, you guys are going to have a great time. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it is. That's going to be a blast. You guys are going to have super fun.
Again, listeners, if you haven't listened to one of these pods before, you can find these builds on our Plastic Posse group page. We have a main Plastic Posse podcast page that's just for us, but it's this group page that we're seeing all these builds. If you're not a member, please join. Please give feedback and commentary. All we ask is that you're positive and you stick to models. It's a great group. There's an unbelievable amount of talent and modelers in there. I think we're knocking on the door of 5,000 members. People are joining each week. So if you're not a member, please join and participate in our community. All right. The list is a little shorter than it has been. There's been a lot of shows in the recent past. So let's talk about some upcoming model shows and events. We have on October 14th, the Charleston SCMA show in Charleston, South Carolina at the Cokesbury United Methodist Church Family Center. Also on the 14th, we have IPMS Duneland 2023, their annual model contest at the Hobart Moose Lodge in Hobart, Indiana. You can contact John Fluck at jfluck@aol.com. We have CapCon at the Canadian War Museum in Ottawa, also on October 14th, a busy day for model shows. You can see all the details at ipmsottawa.com. We have Scale Model Challenge in Eindhoven, which we've just been talking about, October 14th, oddly enough, and 15th. On the 20th and the 21st, we have MMSI at the Chicago Marriott in Schaumburg, Illinois. Please stop by if you're going to that and say hi to Grant and myself and Aaron Cook and Barry and maybe not Jim. He's running it. He might give you the stink eye, but definitely say hi to us, and we look forward to meeting people there. It's a great show, open system. Really, really, if you haven't been to one of these, we'd encourage you to give it a try. Also on the 21st, we have the Oregon Mid-Valley Madness 2023 show, and that's at the Lynn County Expo Center in Albany, Oregon. On Saturday, November 4th, we have the All Things Recce show, aka the Region 12 Model Contest. That's in Dallas, North Carolina. You can find more details on this at ipmscharlotte.org. Sunday, November 5th, we have the Cleveland Model Show in Kirtland, Ohio. You can see Cleveland Model Show on Facebook for the details on that. We have the Bay Colonies Modelers Club show, which is BayCon 2023. That's Sunday, November 5th in Franklin, Massachusetts. And, of course, we have Scale Model World in Telford, Shropshire. There you go, Jensen. United Kingdom, November 11th and 12th.
We haven't done this in a bit, but just a reminder that the Plastic Posse is just one of several great scale modeling podcasts. You can head over to modelpodcast.com and you will find links to them, as well as several modeling related blogs and vlogs, such as our Scale Canadian TV and with our friend Jim Bates.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Grant. Let's get into another discussion topic. This is a little bit streamlined show today. We won't have an interview like we normally do, but let's go over to TJ. TJ, I think you've got a pretty interesting discussion topic.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. So this idea actually came from Mark Masser, who's a member of the posse. He's a member of the Panel Plastic group. I'm sure Grant recognizes his name. He's on Instagram. He's on all that stuff. Really good modeler. Big fan of his work. Really nice guy. And he probably 2 weeks ago, he posted a really, really thoughtful post in the posse. And it was why he chooses the subjects that he chooses. Now, that's not what what my idea was. My idea came from that, and in that idea of why you choose the subjects that you do, I thought, okay, so you choose the subjects that you choose, but what about those subjects in your finished product is the best representation of your modeling identity, right? I know it's kind of weird thing to think about, maybe even kind of nebulous to describe, or how you would describe your modeling identity. I know that's hard. A lot of modelers probably don't think about it. I don't very often. And yeah, so I thought that would be cool. So I asked the boys, which unfortunately half of them aren't here today, because I'd like to, when we get them back, I want to extend this idea to them too, because I would love to hear their input from Jensen, JB, and Doug, because I know I posted the question in our little chat group. But yeah, it was originally phrased as the 4 models that best represent your modeling style or modeling identity. And then I thought about, okay, it doesn't have to be 4 models. I picked an arbitrary number. I don't know why I picked 4. It just sounded cool, I guess. So yeah, I'm gonna start with you, Scott. What models in your collection, and in this, and I think I mentioned it in the chat, this isn't just your favorite models, right? It's not, oh, I did this one and I liked it, so this represents me as a modeler, right? So it has to be something that I think your friends or people that know you, because you're famous, despite what you may think, they look at that and be like, Scott made that, right? I can pick out your model, Scott. I know a Scott model. I know a Grant model. I know a JB model. I know a Doug model. I know a Jensen model. Like I know an Aaron model. I know a Doc model. I know an Ian model. Like I know your guys' work, and I can see, what about it makes, is your identity. But I'm interested to see how you think that, because I'm sure the ones I would pick for myself would not necessarily be the same as what maybe someone else would pick for me. It's kind of like if you enter a bunch of models in a contest all in the same category and they pick one, and then you look at it like, that's not the one I would have picked. That's kind of weird. That's not at all the one I would pick. That happens to me all the time. So I'm kind of interested, and I'll start with you, Scott.
Man, this is a really, really good question. And I know you bounced this off of us a few days ago. I've been thinking about it a lot. I think for me, it would probably be like maybe the Y-Wing and some of the Star Wars kits I've done, Slave One, because I think, as far as style, I tend to kind of, I guess, prefer a hybrid of the subjects that I like, which is sort of half science fiction, half armor, and my like we talked about earlier, my approach is kind of the same for both. I tend to paint very small. I tend to paint over a black base, and I tend to go panel by panel. And so I hope that's the answer to the question. But yeah, I think that probably represents for me, for the most part, what it is. I mean, I have other models. I did a Samoa 3 or 4 years ago, and a Polycarpov I-16 that had very different paint styles for me. But usually when I guess the style or the approach that I take that I usually come back to is the style I've been using, recently on these Star Wars models. So that's what I would say.
So kind of like taking that and going to the next step, I guess. When you think about your modeling style, which I'm convinced everyone has, I don't care what level you're at scale modeling. If you're just beginning, okay, maybe a little less if you're just beginning, but you've been modeling for a little while, you're still technically a beginner modeler. You may not have a finalized style, but if you've built more than one kit, you're already working towards your style, right? You may not have it yet, but you're getting there. It's just like a musician, a band's first album may not define them their entire career, but if you go back and listen to it, I think with most bands, you can see, you listen to their first couple albums, you can see where they're building their identity, right? So, a lot of times a band will have like 1 or 2 albums, and they hit big with that big album, right? Like just in the punk alternative world, you have the Offspring, right? The biggest punk band from the 1990s. They put Southern California punk on the map. They had 2 albums before Smash came out. And if you go back and listen to it, Smash is its own thing that had come out and play. Anyways, if you go back and listen to the first two albums, you can see, you know what I mean? You can see they're working towards their real identity, right? So, and I think even in scale modeling, because it is an artistic pursuit, that to me is not really up for debate. You can debate whether or not it is capital A art, but what we do is an artistic pursuit, to say the least. I think that. So yeah, even like a beginner modeler is working on finding their style, right? So you are not a beginner modeler, Scott. You've been modeling for probably longer than, almost as long as I've been alive. So even though you're not that old, I just haven't been, you've just been modeling for a long time. We'll just leave it at that. So what would you like, how would you describe your style? So if you're picking your Y-wing, which I love, by the way, your Y-wing is fantastic. What about that would you say, like, what about that style? Like, what is it specifically with that model that you're like, this is really me? Like, this defines my style, right? Because it may not, your methods may not always like show through. Painting small, I like to paint small too, but I don't necessarily think that will necessarily show through at the end. Like, maybe, I guess it could, but that's more of how to build the final result. I don't think you can look at someone's work like, oh, they painted small, right? Like, maybe you can. I don't know. I could be wrong. I don't know. But what about that Y-wing is like, you look at it, you're like, yeah, that's me. That's what I do.
I think that's a really good way of phrasing it. I think the couple things that I try to incorporate, I'm influenced by people that I look up to, and I think in some cases that you and I both look up to, like Andy Moore is a great example, but I like to build in, especially on a smaller scale, like you just did your 1/72nd scale Y-wing, excuse me. And what I really like about your approach on that, and it's kind of what I shoot for, is each panel is almost kind of tells its own story. The Adam Wilder thing, each bolt or each weld seam on an Adam Wilder tank makes you just go, oh, wow, and little touches like your gold panel that you put on the nose section of your Y-wing, and the way that you chipped one of your engine bells a little bit different than the way that you chip the other one, asymmetry, that kind of thing makes each little piece of that model look a little better. And the other thing I try to do, and I'm definitely not as good at it as I would like to be, is I try to make my models look bigger than they actually are. And again, I'm not as good as I'd like to be at that, but I try to make a 72nd scale Y-wing try to have a little bit more weight to it than maybe it should based on the size, if that makes any sense. I guess that's kind of a nebulous way to say that, but
that's acceptable. I'll accept that. It's a tough question, isn't it? I'm making you earn your money today.
It is. It's actually a really good question, and honestly, it's a question that moving forward kind of makes me think that maybe when I'm considering what the finish would be, maybe and this goes back to our last episode, the P word. Maybe as I'm planning that, maybe I should be planning these finishes on these models a little bit differently, rather than, oh, this is going to look cool, and just kind of get after it, and I'm really looking forward to your answer to this question as well.
Well, you're going to have to wait, because we're going to go to Grant next. So Grant, it's the same question. What model or models of yours really define who you are as a modeler and as a painter? Because like me, you're also a figure painter. For whatever reason, they like to not call us modelers, but it's still modeling as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, what of your and you've been doing a lot lately, so hopefully you've got some good ones to choose from. And it doesn't have to be a new model. It could be something you did years ago. I'm going to probably mention something that is pretty old when I go, but yeah, what when we look at a Grant Mayberry, what are we seeing? What do you think is, when you put that down on the table, when we all get together at John's house and we all get our models out and show everyone, right? Like we always do when we're at John's house before we go to Commies Fest and the show. We always, do the show and tell. It's one of my favorite parts. I love it, especially because I'm usually like half drunk and I'm having a good time. But what says Grant Mayberry, right? Like what I mean? what is you? What is your identity as a modeler? And what of your work, your voluminous work and very good work describes you?
Well, I've been thinking about this. Like you said, you put this in there, and he gave us homework. I love that comment. I did a Blood Bowl figure quite a while ago. So it was, I think, an Ogren or something like that. And it was color to me, is what I think it brought out. And I think when people see my stuff, I hope they think, but I see color. I'm a big fan of, I learned to paint Warhammer through Duncan Rhodes. I was, Citadel guy. I loved, or Citadel, Warhammer guy. And I used to watch his painting stills, and I learned from him. And the use of color is what I want people to think about when they see my stuff, is because, as everybody knows, I was in the military for a long time. So you get really, really tired when you're in that environment for a long time of camouflage. You get really tired of green. You get really tired of desert color. And even when I was painting some of these figures with bright colors, because I just hated it. I hated the green. You're around it every day, and it's in your face. So it's hard to paint that. I know a lot of guys do, and they, it's great. Don't get me wrong. The reference material's right there in front of your roller pool. But it's not me. My painting is color, and I love color that tells a story. I love color I like old leather. Leather color is beautiful to me. Tarnished uniforms or clothing, steel is phenomenal colors. That's the thing I hope that people think of when they see my stuff. There's an artist out there called Paul Bonner who does books for figure painters and stuff like that. And his work is such colorful. And that's, what I want to get to one day. And it's selfish, I guess, in a way. I don't know if that's the right word, but for me, I just like the idea of something besides your normal figure on the table, something bright, something different, something that tells a little bit of a fun story. It doesn't all have to be the same thing. And that's what I hope that people think of my style, is that.
I would say so. I mean, your Thanos that I have that lives with me right next to TJ's TIE Fighter, by the way. The layers of purple, and that's something that TJ's also really, really good at, are really rich and vibrant. And the eyes, that kind of ice blue color that you used on the eyes, and the deep shades of the metallic highlights in his helmet and everything. I think I'd agree with you. I think really, when I look at your work, I think that color is really, and vibrant color, rich color, I think is really definitely a part of what I like about your work. So I'd agree with that. Same thing with TJ, the purple Mac that he was working on here recently, and I don't know what to call that. You did another purple figure, like our bust last year, TJ. I don't remember what the
it was like a robot. It was like a robot guy.
Yeah. But your purples are really rich and really, really cold. Not cold, but cool. Really cool, but really silky, and I don't know, deep. And same thing with your Thanos, Grant. That's what you guys are both really, really good as far as color vibrancy, and my eye really likes that. So Grant, what I see, and what I think, when I can pick out your work, not just because you're my friend and I've known you for a while. I mean, that is a lot of the reason. Let's be fair. It's good. Yeah. I see it a lot. You have a very distinct display language, I guess, for lack of a better term. Aesthetic, I guess, is a little more accurate. And I think JB has mentioned it too, and I definitely agree. You display well, and in a very unique style that suits the work that you do. Right? Like it all works really, really well together, and that's not easy to do. I struggle with that. That's why I don't. Most of my stuff is just tanks on a plank or a dude standing on a plinth. Like I don't. It's tough, and you is part of your style is working your display in with everything, whether it be a small piece of ruins, whatever. I know the one. Was it last year or the year before that you had at Commies? It was like the Gene Stealer Magus, I think.
Vegas. Was that last year or was that this year?
That
I
was
can't
last
remember.
year.
Okay, that's
Last year.
and
Yeah.
it won. I think it won first.
Yeah.
I think it did. And it was like that was the one that was on like a part of a ruin, right?
Right.
That I believe wasn't that like aquarium, like an aquarium thing, which is awesome.
Yeah.
I would never think to do that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just a Warhammer figure standing on a base, right? Like that's all my Warhammer figures are just dudes on little circle bases. Like even the ones I know I'm not gonna play with just because they come with the base.
Right.
So I'm gonna use it. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And that I think really it really is one of your defining traits as an artist, right? I'm going to call you an artist, so if you're not offended.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, that I really feel so because like, see, I think you're Magus. I don't know. I can't remember how to pronounce it, but the model. It's a Gene Stealer. I know it's Gene Stealer called. It's a newish model. It's cool. See, that's one that I would pick, that I think defines Grant as a painter, and also your dwarf project, which I really liked.
Yeah.
It was like 5 of them, right?
Yes.
5 or 6.
Yeah.
It was 5, right?
5. Yeah.
Okay.
5.
Yeah. Dwarves are cool anyways. So bonus points for being dwarves. But yeah, that like those are the two, like when I think Grant and Grant's work, those pop in my brain like immediately.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I like to tell a story. I think that does help. I've always had that pushed into my head. If you're going to do something, make it a little bit of a story, make something to it. It brings a little bit more life, and that's just for me. And it comes back to the color thing, that I can add more color because I can throw a plant in there. I can throw some ruins in there and stuff like that. So it gives me another, it gives me something else to, throw. But I do.
That's something I was going to say. Your presentation, the Thanos I have is beautifully mounted on, a wooden base, but your dwarves were presented. I mean, you had the medallions or coins. I mean, you have that, and the metallic accent is like, I mean, for a dwarf is just perfect. I wouldn't have thought of that, but you just absolutely nailed it. And then I can see, even though I don't have them in front of me, I can see those dwarves' beards and mustaches, and the different colors of hair and everything. So yeah, I think your presentation is really, really great. Your ability to kind of present more than just the piece. And as somebody that's been trying to improve on my presentation bases and things, I really look up to you for that. So
appreciate it. I really do appreciate it. And I learned from all you guys. I mean, to tell you the truth, I mean, watching, looking at something like TJ's Space Marine that you did with the white armor, I have so much trouble painting white. I don't know how people do that. White and yellow just killed me. So, seeing that is, it just drives me to do more. But, I do really appreciate that. And it's funny you say that, TJ, that you said, that one model that you don't think is going to do well always seems to win. And that always seems to happen, to me at least. You're that model that you've spent so much time on, and you just you're doing layering and washes and everything, and then you get this one, you go you throw it and you put it on the table. It's just and that's always the one that wins or something does well. So it's crazy. That's funny. I appreciate that. So
all right, TJ. time to lie in the bed that you made here.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, I think I have a couple pieces that I feel that really I feel define me as a modeler. I like to think that I have a distinct style. I'm sure that I do, and I of course I'd like to think that what I think is my style is what other people think is my style, because if it's not, man, whew, that's gonna suck. So the first one that I would point at is Last Chance. It's the M4 composite that I built, the Asuka kit, and that finish to me, that finish is that's like the best version of what I can do on olive drab. My favorite color to work with. I love working with olive drab. I paint a lot of things olive drab, tanks, other stuff, especially tanks. And I feel like I don't think Last Chance is my best complete kit. I think it's pretty good. It's not I don't think it's the best Sherman I've done. I think my M4A1 76 I did last year is better. Judges agree because that has done well. If Last Chance has not. But I feel like that is like, I would like to think that people could look at that and that are maybe tangibly aware of who I am and what I do. I think that is the best example. If I were to show someone some of my work, that's usually what I would show them, because I'm very proud of that. And I feel like that looks like a TJ build. That may be pretentious to think, and that's fine. But I feel like that's me as a modeler. It does everything that I feel I do well. It was done on that model, except for dust. I still can't do dust, but dust on that model turned out pretty decent. I'm more or less happy with it. Another one that kind of venturing into. So I'm sure most people know, mainly an armor guy, and I love to do figures. I'm not a figure guy. I'm a competent figure painter. I like doing figures. I think one of the figures that really is, I still think it's one of my best ones, and this is not why I would choose this, but my Chief Liam bust. That to me, it's good work. It's not my best work. It's definitely good, but it was a good blend of my two main styles, right? Like of armor and figures. And because I painted his armor like I would paint a tank. I did, actual chipping. I didn't paint the chips. I used orange, which I don't know if anyone's noticed, but I like to use orange. And then when I go back and look at all my work from the last handful of years, like fully half of them have orange in them somewhere. And I weathered it like I would weather a tank. And yeah, I feel like, plus it's a great sculpt, and I feel like I was able to use that to really get how I wanted it to turn. It turned out exactly how I wanted it, which is rare. I think for most people, it's especially rare for me. There was nothing about that finished product that I didn't like. I liked every bit of it. Yeah, that's one. And I would probably also say, so I have an armor, I have a figure, and my other main love is sci-fi. And sci-fi was a tough one for me to really define my style as a science fiction modeler. And it was kind of a tie between my PKA Leopard, which is my favorite Machine Krieger suit that I've ever done. And it was either that or one of my X-Wings. I couldn't really pick one. I was looking at them all. I've done a lot. I mean, obviously Red 6, I love the scheme. And honestly, I think the recently completed Y-Wing is a good example of, that's everything I've learned from building armor, building other sci-fi, and building Star Wars, I put into that Y-Wing, right? I look back at some of my older X-Wing builds, and I can see a lot of the techniques that I started to use that I just turned up to 11 on the Y-Wing, right? And so it's kind of a mix between those. I feel like if you look at my Leopard, which I'm sure my friends are getting tired of me talking about because I talk about it all the time, but I really, really like it. That has a very distinct weathering style that is also carried through. You see it on the Y-Wing. You kind of mentioned it earlier, Scott. Like I like oil paint rendering, but I do my version of it. And I think even Brian Krieger, when I showed him the Leopard, he was like, "Oh, I really like how you did like that dirt and grime." He's like, that was with the oils, right? I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, he's like, I really like that. And it's what I would call oil paint rendering, but it's punchier, right? And a little bit deeper in the panel lines intentionally to build up that extra contrast. And I did that. I started it with doing it in science fiction, like Star Wars. And I've kind of really leaned heavily into it with my Machine Krieger. Hopefully it looks good. Like, I hope so, because it's the only way I know how to do it. I don't know any other way to do it. So hopefully it's working. But you can see it in the Leopard. You can see it in the SAFS A8R8 that I finished recently, which I'm also very proud of. And you see it in the Y-Wing. That is really the culmination of my style over the last 10 years of modeling, right?
Yeah.
I like to think, at least, I could be way off base. I don't know.
No, I think I really dig, I referenced Andy Moore earlier, and I know that you're a big fan as well. And I think what I see, like Chief Liam was going to be one that I was going to talk about with you as well. But there's two areas of your work that I really, really dig and that say TJ to me. The first one is that you kind of bring a figure painting approach to your weathering, and you kind of talked about this a little bit, but when you hit a panel on the nose on that Y-wing, you're almost painting it more like a figure, even though it's a machine. That's a compliment. Hopefully that comes out the way I meant it, but the contrast, and you called it punchy, I think, but the way that you're kind of approaching it is really, I think, more like a figure painter would. And then the other thing is, I love whether it's olive drab and kind of muted earth tones, or whether it's Chief Liam with white and orange, or it's purples and reds. I really love the way your eye sees color and the way that you use different colors to complement each other. And on most of your pieces, like the George Washington bust doesn't apply, I don't think so much, but most of your pieces really have a couple of different vibrant colors that really work well together. On your Machine and Krieger builds, always love the stripes or the numbers, or you always kind of bring a yellow or a red or something in there to bear on the piece that really then sets the rest of the piece off to me. And it's really striking. And again, to me, I don't know, Grant, what you think, but to me, that says TJ.
Yeah, I was agree. I'm also going to say that kind of a little bit different too, is that I don't know anybody else that paints olive drab as well as you. I can tell you paint olive drab very, very well. And that is not an easy color, as a lot of people will tell you. And you hit that subtle tone where it's layered, and and the fact that you say your dusting doesn't work. Yeah. Okay. Your dusting is good, especially on the composite. That Sherman, the way that you use the lighter tones to bring out the composite of the front of that vehicle, it really just sells. You sell it 100%, and you did it like you said with Chief Liam with the white, and you did it right, because that's all it is an armored suit is armor. It all is, and you nailed it. You didn't, you hit it just right. And that when I see stuff like that, where I see hard, strong colors like that, and the way you feather them in and bring them to life, that's TJ to me. I mean, I've always been a fan of your Shermans. I mean, I always have, and always will be. Your M4A1 is beautiful. I mean, I think your composite is better, and that's my opinion. But I think the way you do that, the way you understand the tonal differences and bring that little splash of color into places, your Maquet kits, your Star Wars kits, your figures too, is TJ to me. That's what I see when I see that kind of style. And even in Link's new book, your figure, your Walker is beautiful. I mean, it is. It really is. And there's a splashes of colors, and that's just what it is. So that's when I think of a TJ. That's what I think of.
I think one thing I want to also highlight for me is, and I'm going to reference a build you brought to San Marcos, and that's your little 72nd scale FT-17. And you're comfortable working on a little Woody doll for your figure, or a little tiny 72nd scale FT, as much as you're confident in building a great big Lunagans or a Y-wing or a 35th scale piece of armor. Not everybody can do that, can scale up and scale down. And I think that's something that I really like and appreciate about your work as well.
See, I think everyone can do that. People just think they can't. I think we're going to have to go off on another little tangent here. And I know I've discussed this with Mike over at Class Model Mojo, and to a lesser extent, Dave. So I do not believe in natural talent at all. Just, it's a myth. And there's nothing anyone will ever say that will ever change my mind. The greats get great because they trained. I 100% believe that. I don't care what your discipline is. Wayne Gretzky wasn't born Wayne Gretzky. He became Wayne Gretzky. Michael Jordan wasn't born Michael Jordan. He became Michael Jordan. Now, they have certain aspects of their personality that are different. Like with Wayne Gretzky, he trained harder than every other person on the planet. That's how he got to be as good as he was. He wasn't the biggest. He wasn't the strongest. He wasn't the fastest, but he took what he knew and was taught and used what his natural, I guess everyone has natural ability, and you can have a natural affinity, but everything can be taught. And my argument has always been, if everyone was either good at something or not, why do we have art school? You go to learn to be an artist, right? Like, no one is born an artist. You become an artist. Guitar virtuosos aren't born that way. They learn. Yeah, sure, they may have a natural affinity for hearing tones and hearing notes, but that skill that they learn that skill they have is learned. And studies back this up. Studies back. People think, I can't play music by ear. You can be taught. It may take longer than some people. It's this amount of times you're going to learn how to play by ear. All those skills are taught. You can teach anyone anything. And I believe that. So in kind of going back to that, yeah, I do agree that I am comfortable jumping from 120th scale to 172nd scale. Hell, I've done 144th scale, and it was just like building anything else. Anyone can do that. I wasn't born that way. I taught myself how to do it just by practicing. Yeah, I just hopefully Mike listen to this and we can have a good conversation, because natural skill is not a thing. Natural affinity is a thing, and you may learn faster than other people, but I truly believe anyone can learn anything. I mean, obviously there are some limitations to that. I mean, physically, that kind of stuff. Obviously, not everyone can be Simone Biles. If you don't have a left leg, you're probably not going to be Simone Biles. Unfortunately, you may. Who knows? I would like someone to prove me wrong. And she's another example. Simone Biles has become the world's best gymnast because she was born that way. She trained ridiculously hard. I'm the father of a gymnast. I know how hard she trains to be at that level, like Simone Biles. The amount of training most people can't even comprehend. That's what sets those people apart from you and I, right? That's what sets the Wayne Gretzky's, the Michael Jordans, and the Simone Biles is their dedication to practice and repeated practice in the right practice. And modeling's the same way. Like, Martin Kovacs didn't become him, what he is now, just one day. He was, I'm just going to do this amazing thing. And you can even see it in his videos. You see the progression from his first video to what he's doing now. Adam Wilder's the same way. You look at an early Adam Wilder model. Yeah, they're good. They're really good. They hold up. We've talked about this, I think, offline and in person. We've talked about similar stuff. But you look at an old like Adam Wilder, and then you look at, I can't remember that thing he's working on now that he just posted a picture of over the weekend. It's amazing. Like, they're definitely, what he does now is better than what he did 20 years ago, because he has 20 years of experience.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And because people see what someone used to do or started doing is better than what they do now. That doesn't mean you can't get there, or that they also started there. You may not, I've never seen Adam Wilder's first model. It could have been a giant piece of crap. Who knows? I just know what he does now.
Yeah.
And sure, it's amazing. I think it's a nice little tangent. and it kind of goes to like what I've told you before, Scott, where, when I was really starting to paint a lot of more figures a year or so ago, and people are like, oh, I can't believe that figure's so good for you, for you haven't been doing this that long. But I have, like, you guys just didn't know, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fine. Like, no, I've been painting figures as long as I've been doing anything else. It's for most of my modeling, that was what I did. I just wasn't on a podcast, and you didn't know who I was, and they weren't that good. So even if you did know who I was, you'd be like, well, these suck. Like, I've put in the time too, and just like anyone else. And now I'm not saying that I'm the best ever at anything, because I'm not, but like, if someone looks at me and they're like, oh man, I wish I could do what TJ does, or I wish I could do what Grant does. And, I just want to say to anyone, like, yeah, you can, you just have to practice. That's literally all that it is you practice. Like, I've painted literally hundreds of minis in my life, and most of them no one will ever see, because I use them for games. Some of them I don't even use anymore. They're sitting in bins behind me, and that's where they'll probably live until I throw them away, or my wife sells them when I die. Like, I don't know. That's just what's going to happen. I mean, this is stuff.
Yeah.
I have no real emotional attachment to it, but yeah, that's, sorry to go off on a little bit of a tangent.
No.
That's the
No,
hill.
no,
that's
good.
that's my soapbox, because I always get into it with people, and I feel like I'm in the minority with that, which I don't understand. Yeah, I've not gotten into it, but had that conversation with more than one person, both in modeling and outside. Like I've talked about it at work too, and I am usually in the minority. People just don't want to accept the fact that, yeah, you can be good at stuff. I guess that's the one thing I can think of.
No, it's a great question, and this has been a really fascinating discussion. I guess maybe before we wrap it up, TJ, question for you: what do you think the biggest influences are in? You mentioned personal style. What influences
for like me,
that?
For me personally,
Yeah,
or just in general.
I mean, just maybe a little bit of both, but I mean, as your personal style is evolving, what are the things that are really influencing that more than anything else?
I mean, for me, it's who I look up to, right? It's who I put on that pedestal, right? And I can name, and you know what? I'm going to name names. I say that like as a bad thing. You know, you already mentioned Andy Moore. Anyone that doesn't know who Andy Moore is, he is, not necessarily reclusive. He does his own thing. He's, as far as I know, not on any socials. He posts on Brit Modeler, which is a forum, and he's still modeling. He posted something earlier this year, so he's still making stuff, as far as I know. He has a Flickr account that's amazing. It has all of his builds in it. I reference it all the time. I have it bookmarked. Multidiscipline modeler, armor, sci-fi, airplanes, figures. Early influence for me personally. I definitely admit that I was just trying to copy him, which I don't think is wrong. You know, I wasn't trying to like build his exact. Well, that's not even true. I have done his exact builds before. I take that back. Oops.
Well, I mean, isn't that what we do, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
no, it is.
We're
I don't
modelers,
care.
right?
Yeah.
We build small scale replicas of other things.
And like we mentioned before, if you put out a step by step, you're asking someone to do what you built.
Exactly.
Sorry, Jensen. Like, that's not copy, man. If you put out a video or a step-by-step article telling people how you did what you did, you're inviting them to also do that. Yeah. So he's one. JB, and I've said that to JB and made him embarrassed multiple times, but I knew who JB was before we had this podcast, before he was a guest and before he was a host. I knew who John was. He was, and funnily enough, John was one of the first like famous modelers that talked to me. Right. And as a neophyte modeler that's trying to find his way, that is like, I'll never forget that. Like, it was one of the most important things that ever happened in my modeling. And it was innocuous. It wasn't like a big deal, right? Like, it's not like he levied some profound wisdom on me that changed my life. Like, I mean, he might have, I don't know, but John has changed my life. But yeah, the you know, he was like, oh, this dude, this is the real deal. Like, and he's talking to me like, oh man, this is really cool. And yeah, I copy John all the time. John knows that. I've told him that to his face. And he's one. And then, you know, obviously, you know, Mike Rinaldi too. I use oil paints because of Mike Rinaldi, because I don't know how I found out who he was, but I got one of his books, volume Tankard 2, Allied Armor, still my favorite modeling book. And yeah, and I looked at what he did. I'm like, I want to do that because it was good. But yeah, I guess like, but in a more general sense, you know, how you develop your style is you find what you like, you learn how to do it, and then you do it, and then you do it some more. Like, that's how you find your style. And like I kind of mentioned before, I don't think you may never fully find your style, your complete style, like, because, you know, you can learn new things and try new techniques. I definitely do. I know you guys do too. But you still, you know, the classics never die, man. Like, you still fall back on those things, right? Like, I still fall back on certain things. The way I use oil paint, sometimes I try not to do that, but I like the way it looks and I'm good at it, the way I do it. So I freaking do it.
Dry brushing. We've talked about that.
Yeah, dry brushing.
Yeah.
I dry brush my Shermans with Starship Filth. You want to get a good burnished olive drab, you dry brush with Starship Filth. Beautiful. But yeah, like, to me, that's how you, and you know, you don't, and it's one of those things that I feel like develops naturally. It's not, I don't, and I could be wrong, but to me, I don't know if you can set out to be like, this is my style. I'm going to do this, right? You take what's out there, you throw it against the wall, and you see what sticks. Like, I've tried stuff that I don't do anymore. I don't hairspray chip a lot, just because, you know what? I don't really like it. The process is obnoxious, takes too damn long. It's always been hit or miss for me. It never looks the way I want. So really now I'm like, you know what? F it. I don't want to do it. I'll do it here and there, but I don't really plan builds around. I'm like, yes, this I'm gonna hairspray chip. This is gonna be sweet. Blah 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 blah. It's just not for me. I'll paint my chips. If I'm doing Star Wars, it's sponged on liquid mask, because I'm not saying that's how a lot of the ILM models were painted. Easily like liquid latex type stuff. That gives me Star Wars chips in my mind. That's what I see. I don't do that on almost anything. I'll do it on some machining Krieger for like ID bands too, but not very often. But yeah, does that kind of answer your question? Was that kind of what you're looking for? I don't know, kind of rambling.
Yeah, no, I think so. I mean, Grant, same question to you. I mean, what's influenced your personal style? What have been, the factors that have kind of made your style your style?
Good question. I'm a really big fan of Roman Platt, sorry. He's an artist, figure painter, does a whole bunch of great stuff. I love his use of what he does and how he does it, how he brings color into everything. His ideas of how to base material, how he bases things is very important to me. I see that is one of my keys. Duncan Rhodes, like I mentioned before, I learned to paint with him. I learned how to paint figures with him. I still use the same method I used when he pointed out how to paint flesh. I still use it today. I still use the same 4 or 5 colors, and I fall back on it. I always do. I try different stuff, but I always fall back on Citadel paints for painting my flesh, no matter what it is. Lincoln Wright is another one. Lincoln Wright is, he has an eye for the way he sees color. Link sees color is phenomenal, in my opinion. The way he paints color, and he used lacquer paints, and the way he paints his stuff is another thing that it really drives me to try. And, I don't use it on the same type of material that he does, but I try and use that style, that idea. I'll agree with TJ also is JB. JB has been a huge influence on me. I've said that to before, and same way he gets embarrassed, but I met JB in 2016, I think, the first time. And, we were at a conference or at an IPMS Nationals, and we talked for a little bit. And then 2018, we were talking, and I had done a C3PO for that one. And he came up and, tell me congratulations and stuff. And that meant a lot. That was huge to me. It's just because it was JB. And this guy's, to me, this was back before any of this. So it was huge for me. But, that idea and that concept is what I feel is important. It makes my style. It's just, I try and mix them all together, color, the pattern of weathering, the how people do everything in my group a little, and I try and take ideas from everywhere. I love Pinterest, dude, because I'll just sit there and look at Warhammer figures all day, and I will, and I have files that just packed with pictures, and I do that a lot. And I think it's key for me is that, seeing the different styles, and, do I copy other people's stuff? Oh God, yes. I copy it all the time, and, and I try and make it my own, but, we all do that, but, that's what I think. What about you, Scott?
I mean, it's the same, right? There's people that inspire you. I don't subscribe as much to what TJ was saying about natural talent. And let me just clarify what I mean by that. I agree that if you do something and you keep doing it, you're going to get better. But I think sometimes the way that we see things is different. And I do think that some people see things, I don't know if better is the right word. That's very subjective. But I think some people see things maybe the way that you see them, or in a way that you can relate to it a little bit more. And I think that does make a difference. I think if you don't see subtlety in tones and colors and everything, if you don't see those, it kind of makes it really, really hard to replicate those, if that makes sense. So from that standpoint, I'm not sure I agree, because I think that, you read about Da Vinci and Michelangelo, and they could look at a piece of marble and they could see a statue in the marble, and their job as a sculptor would be to release that statue that was in that piece of marble. And I think that, the way that we paint our models and the way that you guys paint, especially, I think there's that ability to see is really, really important. But anyway, TJ, man, fantastic discussion point. We gotta bring this back with the full crew. I can't wait to kind of hear everybody else's take on this, but fantastic. And for all of those of you listening, please comment, send us your comments. What pieces have you done that best describe or best maybe represent your modeling style? And what factors have influenced your own personal style? I think it's really awesome to maybe think about things in that way. So anyway, well, TJ, you want to talk about some merch?
Of course I do. If you would like to rep the posse, you can check out our awesome merch on the Triple P Teespring page. You can find coffee mugs, t-shirts, jumpers, and even some of our world-famous Triple P lounge trousers. You can order all of your stylish Plastic Posse merch on the web at plasticpossepodcast.creatorspring.com, or even easier for you, loungetrousers.com.
Awesome. Before we wrap up, we want to wish our podcast mates well. Jensen, feel better. Doug, feel better. We also want to just extend once more our congratulations to Mike and Dave on their 100th episode. Listening to that today, it's a lot of fun to hear that. That's a great milestone and a lot of work, and those guys are terrific. Well, everybody, thanks for saddling up and riding along with us for episode 79 of the Plastic Posse, even though we're a little smaller than normal today. Your support, along with our great sponsors and patrons, help bring you the PPP every 2 weeks. Got a gripe, maybe a suggestion, something you'd like to see a little bit different? You can send us your feedback to plasticpossepodcast@gmail.com. Well, for Grant and for TJ, we will see you all in 2 weeks for episode 80. In the meantime, shows will be attended, things will be seen, fun will be had. And for all of those of you out there that have listened along with us tonight, thank you very much. And yeehaw!
Nice. If you would like to support the Triple P and become a Plastic Posse Outrider, it's super easy. Just go on over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/Plastic Posse Podcast and set up a recurring donation there. These contributions help offset the cost of bringing you the Triple P. There are 3 different tiers of support, starting at just $1 a month. There are some really great benefits: early access to the podcast, premium access to the host, that's us, the chance to appear on a podcast, and exclusive Triple P content. Let's recognize our amazing Deputy Marshals. These guys really step up and help the posse do what we do, and we sincerely thank them for their support. They are Nog and the Nog, Brad Ralston, Stephen Rodwell, Rick Cooper, Tim Gidcombe, Dan Newman, Robert Blocker, Tyler Moore, Derek Post, Craig Flynn, Brian Kreiner, Scale Modelcraft, Ken Childress, Nick Butta, Drew Gardner, Scott Hall, Frank Perrone, The Voice of Bob, Jeremy Diamond, Ryan Smith, Terry Wilkinson, Chris Lovewell, Andrew Callis, Ethan Idenmill, Bruce the Model Noob, Steve Baker, Eric Daglish, Joe Porche, Patrick Brown, Jay Kidd, Brandon Gentry, Robert Klein, Mark Ewing, Ted Kawahara, Toadman, Model Doc, Doug Reed, Greg James, Les Ricala, B Cult 1911, John Everett, Josh Buck, Black Rifle Model Works, Thomas Baniak, Mark Bradley, Zach Pease, Joel Munson, Eric Brubaker, Jeremy Moore, DB Scale Model Studios, Matt Johnston, Jeremy Elliott, Mike Talley, Previous Seat, Mediocre Middle-Aged Modeler, Dan Knopfel, and JC Osborne.
Dude, that was epic.
That was great.
It's pretty good, right?
That was really good.
That was fantastic. Let's also recognize our excellent posse foremen. These foremen are outriders who give the deputy marshals a hand around the ranch. We've got Steve, William, Rob, Tim, Jeff, Eddie, Ross, George, Gary, Warhoff Models, Drew, Ross, Eric, Len, Cliff, Eric, Mike, Papa Steve, Red Beach One Studios, MD Models, JV, Damian, Kieran, Cody, Sunkissed, Nukeman Mike, Greg, JAK, Ash, Irish Pat, Paul. What is the deal with iBones Models? Mr. Grizz, Jackson, MAK Armor, Chris, Lee, and Jamie.
And of course, our Posse Outriders. We appreciate all of you, including our newest outrider, Mark Bradshaw. Thanks, Mark. Welcome to the Posse. Please consider posting a review of the Triple P on the podcast platform you use. Each 5-star review helps other modelers find the Plastic Posse.
The following stinger will contain spoilers again about Ahsoka. I mean, that finale was awesome.
Yeah.
What did you guys think? I mean, incredible, I thought.
Yeah. Now I just can't wait for the Thrawn movie.
I liked it. I have a couple issues, really issues, observations, complaints, if you will. And I did not come up with these. So I heard these actually before we started recording. I was watching video and I agree. And, yeah, so my biggest complaint, I guess, is, dude, you have lightsabers, man. Like, why aren't like you chopping heads off and chopping limbs off? I'm not saying it has to be like violent and bloody and all that stuff, but like you're fighting essentially zombie stormtroopers. Just cut their legs off. You can just get away from them. Then you don't have to worry about it. I mean, they don't move that fast.
Yeah, go full Holy Grail on them, right?
I mean, it seems like they're. I get it. They're the Death Troopers, right? If anyone's familiar with the old, EU, there were these things called Death Troopers. They wore black. They were essentially zombies. That's what these Night Troopers are essentially when they bring them back from the dead. And it seems like some of them can still shoot their blasters and some don't. Whatever. It was cool. I'm not like, oh, this sucked. It was interesting. I liked it. Yeah, I think the fight choreography was good this episode. Probably the best it's been. The only thing I'm a little disappointed in is they kind of just, and I get it, and I understand why they did it, and it still bothers me. But this is the age we live in. There's no resolution to Shin Hati and Balin Skull literally just dangling plot threads, and I get it. It's setting up the next thing. Fine. But even as someone who's obsessed, at least I'm a little over it now with the MCU, and I always like the next thing. Sometimes I do just want some goddamn resolution. Just end a storyline for me, please.
Yeah.
And then I guess my other biggest complaint is not a lot happened in 8 episodes. I enjoyed it, and I'm not like, oh, this is dumb. But like, really, when you think about it, if someone were to ask you, hey, what happened in the Ahsoka series? You're like, well, they found a map. They flew to Peridia. They found Ezra. Ezra and Thrawn left.
Yeah. That's
literally what happened. That's all that happened. And there were some 2 weird, maybe bad Jedis that you don't know a whole lot about that are cool. That's it.
Yeah.
I do wish maybe a little more happened. Like I kind of wish they had gotten to Peridia at episode 2, right? Or at the end of episode 2, start episode 3 in Peridia, but I don't think they got there till like episode 5. Right? Like And again, this is not, I'm not. It was good. I really enjoyed it. I told my friend who hadn't watched it yet, I gave it a solid 8 out of 10. I think that's a pretty fair score. You know, it's not Andor. Andor's a 10 out of 10 for me. Season 1 of Mandalorian, 9.5 out of 10. Season 2, probably about an 8.5. This is up there. It was good. I really liked it. And I've also maintained, and much to people's chagrin, to me, there is no bad Star Wars. I will find something to like about all Star Wars. You know, when it was trendy to shit on the prequels, sure, I did that too. But in the same breath, like, but you know, there's a lot of it I actually really liked. Yeah, there's some dumb stuff. Don't get me wrong. There's some really stupid stuff happening in the prequels. I don't really like Attack of the Clones. It's my least favorite of the prequel movies. But even in that movie, there's some cool stuff. And same thing with the sequel trilogy. You know, I genuinely enjoy the first 2 movies. I did not enjoy The Rise of Skywalker on a whole. There's some stuff I really liked. Some stuff I really didn't like. You know, somehow Palpatine returned. It, to me, is one of the worst lines in any Star Wars movie ever, for a number of reasons. And that beats everything written by George Lucas, who has written all the worst Star Wars movies. And it's just like, yeah. So yeah, that's a long way around in saying I enjoyed Ahsoka, despite a handful of issues I had with it. It wasn't perfect, but nothing is.
Yeah,
I would happily watch it again. And I've recommended it and will continue to recommend it to people.
Yeah. I really liked it. I thought the fact that I kind of was wondering if they would even, maybe to your point, that they would even get there and find Thrawn and find Ezra. But there's no doubt that this series was a setup that leads towards a bigger story. And that's, you know, the Rogue Jedi, that's, you know, lining up Thrawn to return and everything. But I really like the development. I didn't like her at first, but really like the development of oh man, what's her name? The Mandalorian
Sabine?
Yeah, Sabine. Yeah, I didn't like her that much at first, but I really ended up liking her character and what they did with her a lot. I thought the lightsaber fight, like to your point, between Ahsoka and I don't remember her name, but the witch lady, I thought
Morgan?
that was Morgan. I thought that the choreography was fantastic, really, really good on that. Special effects were fantastic, and I actually liked a lot of the new ship designs, and I haven't been able to say that about all of the series, but I thought it was really good. And it's kind of cool to see the Clone Wars and Rebels, and see those, you know, make the jump to the live action. And I think they've done really, really good with that. And all I can say is I can't wait for, you know, whatever comes next. I guess that's probably Mandalorian season 4 at some point. But I think it's going to be a while.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That's going to be a while for that one, I think, just because of the strike. But yeah, I liked Ahsoka. I liked what really was important to me was the introduction of Thrawn. I've read the Thrawn series and I really liked it. I liked how they played the you know, how he got stuck in that alternate universe kind of idea. And when you see him, if you look at him closely, and I didn't see this, it was brought up to me that his uniform, he'd been gone for 9 years and his uniform was all frayed around the collar, and he still had
that's cool.
you know, and you know, he'd been doing, and the ship was wrapped with the gold like the stormtroopers were. And you know, it was I found that subtext of that was really cool. I find that was really fun. What are they, the sisters of what, I can't remember. Yeah, that I wish there was more about that. That's pretty interesting to me. I mean, just, you know, and they're bringing the other sisters back, though, you know, to form the army. But you know, I'm kind of like with you guys. There's a couple things that I really liked. There's a couple things I didn't. That you know, when the stormtroopers, death troopers now came back to life, and they were just kind of there, and they were just standing there. I was like, I was like what TJ said. It's like, damn, you got a lightsaber. Just start taking legs off or heads off or something. But
it was a little bit of like Disney made a film in the late 70s called The Black Hole.
Yeah.
And that movie. Sort of alternate dimension, zombified. There's a little bit of a black hole vibe there that was kind of interesting, to see it kind of portrayed that way. Love Chopper. I forgot to mention that the way that Chopper's head kind of bounces up and down, and as a live action character is really, really terrific.
Yeah, there's some really good stuff.
And one thing, and this isn't a complaint for me, but I would understand, like, it's definitely a weakness to the series, because if you're a casual fan, you're going to watch this and be like, what in the actual hell? Like, hold on, there's magic? Like I know the Force is a thing, but like, this is just, there's just magic, right? And as someone who is obsessed with Star Wars and knows all these things, that doesn't bother me, because I know that's a thing, right? And we talked about it in the last thing, like it is fantasy, but to the casual viewer, like my wife, she watched the first episode and was like, not into this. Now she'll watch Mandalorian and loves it, because the casual average viewer that's tangibly aware of Star Wars, right? You can watch Mandalorian and be like, yes, I understand all of this. And there's Baby Yoda. So you can't really do that with Ahsoka. And that, to me, that's not a problem, but I can see why people, and I can see why you read reviews and they don't like it, because they're not us, right? They're not obsessed with it, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with making content targeted towards a certain section of the fans, but at the same time, like, you can't always do it, right? And I hope that Dave Filoni, when he makes his movie, that it doesn't it's not just for the fans of Rebels and the Clone Wars, right? Because that's what essentially that's what this show was for. It was for them.
Yeah.
And I wasn't a fan of those shows, even though I was aware of what happened on them, and I don't hate them or anything. It's just they're not the movies to me. But I since I know the stories, I watch the videos, I read the articles, like, okay, I got it all. And it's Star Wars, so I just love Star Wars, but not everyone's like that. So hopefully whenever if he does his version of Heir to the Empire, which would be friggin' sweet, as long as it is accessible, because you can't make it too closed in.
Right.
Like you just can't, right? As much as we all like, sure, I would love something that just sings to me in my particular fandom, but that's not what this is, right? Star Wars is for everybody, and we need to make sure everyone can access it. Like, sure, make it for the hardcore nerds. Like, yes, do that, but you have to do everything else, and that's a tall order. That shit's hard. That is really hard.
Yeah, I'm a perfect example of that. I'm a Western guy. I've watched hundreds. I own hundreds of Westerns. I love them. So for me, as much as I recognize how good Andor was and how well it was made, I'm still more of a Mandalorian guy, from the opening scene of the first episode all the way through. And I love it because it's a Western, and that's what Star Wars, the original Star Wars, was a Western. So that's my favorite. But all I'll say is I have yet to see any of these series that I liked less than any of the movies except for Empire and Rogue One. I love these series. I think they're made with a love that you can feel. I mean, you can tell Dave Filoni's like a Star Wars fan like 3,000 times what we are. You know what I mean? He just his episodes are full of love letters to the property, to the story. Yeah. And that just really comes through, I think. So
I like the fact too that they're bringing back more physical models, more physical. I'm a big fan of Adam Savage, and I listen to his podcast or his YouTube page all the time. He talks about that too, and I think that's really an interesting. I think it goes back to the 70s, episode 4 and 5 and 6, how they did that, how they brought and I love how Mandalorian did that. I love how, some parts of Ahsoka did that. So I think that's a really cool also aspect of it.
Yeah.
For me, at least.